Hey, welcome to the Women Conquer Business Show. I'm Jen McFarland, joined by Shelley Carney.
Hello.
And hello. And we are so excited to be here. We are continuing this month with productivity. In fact, today we'll be talking about how productivity is calculated. If you want to get in the weeds on some of that, different things that you can do to save a little bit of time and energy. But first, let's check in with what we've been up to. Shelley, how are you?
Oh, I am doing very well, thank you. Experiencing interesting times in the health department between my husband and me. So when you start to get in your 60s, it's just things start falling apart. So we're rolling with the punches on that. But Toby and I are finishing up our Livecast life book. We just did our last installment for the book yesterday. So what we did was we would do slides
Mhm.
about a topic. First, we pick a theme, then we do break it up into episodes. Then we would do slides on that topic, and then we would present that as a live stream, then transcribe that, edit that into a blog post, and then into a chapter for our book. So it's going to be about 15 chapters. We just did the last installment yesterday, and I'm hoping to have the book out on April 1st.
April Fool. No, I'm just
April
kidding.
Fools. Well, that's what I thought, well, if I go for April 1st and it doesn't happen, then I can say April Fools.
April Fools. Oh, that's wonderful. Getting back to what you said about going into your 60s, my business partner says getting old isn't for wimps.
No.
So, yeah, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Uh, I I'm in my 40s and I just have stuff and things and yeah. No, it didn't happen when I was in my 20s. So today I started dragon boating. That's a thing that
Oh.
we have here in Portland, Oregon. We have,
Mhm.
for those of you who don't know, we have a large river through the middle called the Willamette, and we have a annual festival called the Rose Festival. And part of the Rose Festival, in addition to parades and all kinds of celebrations, are dragon boat races. So dragon boats are, gosh, I don't know how many people we had today. They're long boats and you're paddling. So you're paddling forward. It's not like rowing, which is a little bit of a backward motion. And it was super fun. It's so nice to get up at, I think we were out on the river by 6 o'clock this morning.
Ooh,
And so
wow. It
quiet
was
and
cold.
peaceful and a little cold and super fun. So it was really great. And it was a nice break and celebration. I've been working so hard on launching this new product, and it's out now. It's called Find the Right Marketing Tools for Your Small Business. And coincidentally, do you remember, Shelley? We talked about that topic on an earlier show. And
Yes.
this is a deep dive into that. So if you enjoyed that show and you're like, I would like to learn more about how to actually do this, that's what this is. This is something that I work on with clients all the time. I am If there's one thing I'm an expert in, it's software and how to make all the tools work. And this is a course in how to do that for yourself so that you know the questions to ask somebody like me, a consultant, or maybe somebody who is trying to sell you some software. And this gives you some guidance around how to do that. The course is about an hour long and with tons of worksheets and guidance on how to figure out what your business actually needs so that you can ask the best questions that you can to get the help that you need. So very excited about that. And that's on Epiphany Courses slash marketing dash tools. And that pairing on to that was also a redesign of the website. So now it looks more like you would expect for an e-commerce website. When you're just starting a business, it's something that I say to clients again and again. You have to start with just that good enough website. And we've had that good enough website just to say, start the presence, get some brand awareness. We've had a lot of really great blog posts. But the site itself was kind of not my favorite thing. It was very
Mm.
busy. It didn't look like an e-commerce site. Now we're getting closer to saying we sell courses. Here, this is all that we do, and it's very exciting. So I feel like so many things are moving forward right now. It's a very exciting time in kind of this business journey, this new venture, which is Epiphany Courses. So it's
Yeah.
very exciting.
Yeah. Well, and since you brought up websites and making changes, yesterday, Toby and I experienced the Windows update, which kind of messed with settings on our equipment that's connected to the computer. So he had gotten a second camera for us to do demonstrations as an overhead camera. So he thought, well, maybe that was it. So he unplugged that. No, that didn't fix it. Then we rebooted our Roadcaster. Did that? No, that didn't fix it. And then we had to mess with the settings and really work at it. And we thought we had it. And then we went live at 1 o'clock yesterday, and one of our viewers told us, your voices are garbled. I can't understand you. So we had to shut down the live stream, continue to work on the equipment, the Roadcaster, rebooted again, rebooted the computer again, and finally got it to where we could understand our voices. We recorded them, on one of those recording programs you can use on your computer, and listen to them. And when they were finally
Yeah,
back to normal, then we set up a show for it like an hour later and went live again, explained to everybody, this is what happens. And this is why people give up on things like live streaming. I mean, I felt like giving up. Toby is extremely dedicated and resilient, and he loves to solve those problems. So he
yeah,
didn't mind at all working at it. I was just like, I don't even have a clue what's going on, and I'm just like, ah. So I can understand those people who need that extra help. And I was like, well, if this happens to
absolutely.
you, call us, because now we've
Exactly.
gone through
Yeah.
it. We've learned from our mistake and our problems and our issues, and we fixed it. We can help you fix it too.
Absolutely. And I'm more like Toby. And at the same time, since I'm so new to this live streaming, I think I would have just been melting down a little bit. But what I love about that story is that then you're like, and then we got on in an hour and it was done. Like it's like it never happened. And I think that that's really, of all the pieces in there, it's like the part that people need to take home with them is that, yeah, like stuff happens and then you just, you get back on the horse.
Well, and the thing is, when we had the first live stream that went wrong, we had one viewer and he told us about the thing, and we shut it off. We came back, we had 5 viewers. So now people are like, what's going on? Why did they do
Oh,
that?
wow. It's like,
They
yeah,
wanted
you
to know the
you
story.
you established scarcity and came back. No,
Yeah.
it's but that's so great. I'm so glad that he was able to fix it. I've read, I'm entirely Mac, so I just
Yeah.
had read about this Windows update not going well for a lot of people, and I'm sorry
Mm.
that that happened to you because it really can ruin your day. It
Mhm.
really does make things difficult for people, especially people who aren't in tech all the time.
Yeah.
I was telling Shelly a story before the show started about why I'm so calm about tech because I worked on a project where we had like tens of thousands of angry customers who wanted things fixed immediately. And it kind of puts things in perspective for me a little bit, especially since I work in with a lot of tech problems in people's marketing. It's not as big of a freak out. Like I always have, like I said, it puts things in perspective for me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's kind of funny. When I was a teenager, I got up in front of people to sing. It was at a graduation ceremony or something, and everything went wrong, right? The speakers were in front of me, so I couldn't hear the music. I couldn't keep time with because I couldn't hear it.
yeah.
They didn't have a feedback, a back speaker for me to hear myself. So I was just kind of I was trying to keep up, and then the music cut out completely. I was standing there going, and the thing that I saw was everybody in the audience was sending me love and, you know, commiserating and empathy. It was just all this coming at me, like, they weren't laughing at me. They weren't, "Ha ha, you messed up." No,
Yeah.
nobody does that. They were like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry that happened to you," and, and 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 then they put the music back on, and then I finished the song. So, I think I learned a lot from that, in that when you have performance snafus,
Yeah.
people are understanding. They're like, "Oh, I hope that never happens to me. Oh, are you gonna recover? Are you okay?" So, that's what people are thinking. Don't think that they're laughing at you or that they think you're a loser because your
No.
technology
Yeah.
didn't work.
No, it's that's you're absolutely right. And people do. They just they every most people, or at least the people I like to hang out with, they want you to succeed.
Yeah.
They don't want you to fail. They want to support you. And that's the thing. Like you were ready to just get back up there and do it. Maybe you needed a little help with the computer part, but we all need help about something. Help with
Mhm.
something. Like this
Right.
show wouldn't be happening if you hadn't have said, "Hey, do you want to do that again?" And it was super scary to like do live streams, but now it's been what, like a couple of months or something,
Yeah.
and it's going really well. Getting
Yeah.
used to it, getting adjusted, and you know, every week it seems like we have something new that's great
Mhm.
and continue to build it.
Yeah. It falls together if you keep working at it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
totally.
Yeah.
What you got? You got some breaking news?
Wait, let's see.
I love that.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
So we have, let's put this in here. Twitter. Twitter launches live test of new profile shops to display products in app. So
So
we're
this is
looking at
really
something
interesting.
on Twitter.
Anytime, and Shelly brought this up. It's a beautiful picture. There's examples. We'll put the article in the show notes. Social Media Today is reporting that you can start if you have they're opening up to some merchants the ability to have e-commerce shops within Twitter. And they go through and they have pictures of like different accounts kind of showing what this looks like. And I think we've talked about this before with Pinterest TV and other places. If you have a store and somebody's giving you the opportunity to put your product there, put your product there. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be. I think in the article they're showing like food products, and then I think they do go and show a couple of other iterations with different people. But if there is some way that you can get your service-based business products in there too, depending on how it's set up, I encourage you to take advantage of that if you're using Twitter. Anytime these platforms give us free space to put our products, it's really a good idea to take advantage of that. At
Mhm.
least that's my take on it. What do you think,
Mhm.
Shelley?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime anybody offers you something that you can showcase yourself or your products, do it. Uh, if that's, we're going to talk about a couple of them in our tweaks of the week, in fact, but this is great. Toby and I are live streaming to Amazon Live, so we can
Yeah,
we can maybe get some action going with selling products, cameras and lights and that sort of thing. So absolutely, anytime there's something like this comes up and available to you, and you learn about it, see if you can get involved and get your products up there. Do it.
absolutely. Absolutely. I lost you for a second, but
Oh,
I'm sure I agree with whatever it is that you said.
I said do it.
So I'm definitely going to test it out and see if I can get for my business if I can get some courses and things in there. We also talked before the show that I like Twitter a lot more than Shelly. So I think she thought of this as something for me. And I hate admitting it, but I do like Twitter.
Yeah, that's all right.
I like the short form part of it. That's what I like, and that you have potentially access to new people and that you maybe wouldn't through another platform.
Mhm,
It's really fun.
mhm.
I
I
don't have
use
any
it
breaking
to
news.
share my stuff. I just don't sit on there and read other people's stuff. I'm more likely to do that on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think and that's the beauty of social media. We all have, our platforms that we really like.
Mhm.
My Facebook is almost entirely at this point on the personal side, the non-business side, is almost entirely people who are super fun and post memes and jokes. So I use Facebook just to have a laugh,
Yeah.
and it's not my favorite platform, but I've got it winnowed down to where it's what I like to see if I want to have
Mhm.
fun. But
Mhm.
then, yeah, then I like LinkedIn and Twitter. Although lately I've really gotten into YouTube. I blame you for that, by the way.
YouTube is awesome. Uh, there is so many good things on there. They've got every interest under the sun. One time we were like, "Oh, we should just make we were like, people, you can never determine what people are going to like and not like, and I don't know whether we could just make a channel about the grass growing." And we looked it up, And there is a
There
channel
is
about grass growing.
what?
There is. And paint drawing as a matter of fact. Yes, there are channels for those things. There's a channel for everything.
The grass grow Welcome to the Grass Growing Channel
Yep.
with Jen McFarland. We have to talk really quietly because the grass grows better. I don't know. I don't know how that would work. That's
It
so funny.
it's kind of funny. Kind of funny. All right.
So, are we ready for some training?
Training. Let's do it. Today we're talking
Let's
about how productivity is calculated.
Yeah, so I had I had a quote and some information to share. I love this because I wanna make sure that we put this in proper perspective. So I have a quote from Warren Buffett. No matter how great the talent or efforts, some things just take time. You can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. So by put what the reason for that is, I mean, obviously you can't produce a baby in 1 month, but it also means some things just take time. So productivity is not about doing things as quickly as possible necessarily. It's about the efficiency of how you do things. So if we think
Mhm.
again about productivity within our businesses, it's the efficiency of your product creation and your delivery process. So at a really high level, and like this is me doing some math, so we know it's going to be very basic and it would be much more specific of an example if you really wanted to do a super deep dive. But at a really high level, if you want to make if you know that it takes 2,000 hours to make $100,000. You divide the 2,000 hours, into the $100,000 and it's $50 per hour of work. Now, that's not really accurate because if you are running a business, you have things like overhead, you have the things that you have to buy or the place that you have to go to get the work done, or maybe you're buying products and building something and you have all these different costs involved. But at a really high level, it's like what you calculate productivity by the amount of money that you want to make and the amount of time, and all of the rest of it factors in as well. I think that this is important to look at from this perspective for people who are solopreneurs or small business owners, because it kind of goes into pricing, which is not really my specialty by any stretch. But a lot of people undervalue their services. They don't think a lot about how much time does it make to create this product? How how much energy is it going to take? What are my costs when I go to have a website or buy the equipment that it's gonna take to produce the thing. What did it cost for that computer? There are so many things that go into delivering a service that it's not purely how many hours of, say, consulting to make $100,000 or whatever it is that you're doing. You have a lot of other factors that go into it. You have to cover your own insurance. You have to cover your own costs in all realms. So when you start thinking about how productivity is calculated in kind of the more macro way, we're going to talk a lot about tasks and time audits. When you think about how you calculate productivity in the macro way, this is why people charge more for services than like $10 an hour.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're paying for all of the expertise, you're paying for all of the other additional costs that it takes to run a business. So I want to encourage people who are listening or watching to really think about productivity in different ways. A lot of times we think of it as time, but it's also, would it cost maybe $10 more to be more efficient? And what would that efficiency help you gain? And when we think about all of these factors that go into how we do our work, what is it that would make it the most effective? So you can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. You also can't charge $10 an hour because you have additional costs. And sometimes it costs more to deliver a better product quicker and then you find other ways to get that out to more people. So when we calculate productivity, we kind of have to look at a lot of different factors. And that's also the case when we talk about things like all of the tasks that we have to do. Right, Shelley?
Yeah, I'm looking at your how you introduced it. Productivity equals efficiency of your product creation plus the delivery process. So you have to first create the product, then you have to deliver it, and it's those things together that add up to your productivity, and that's how you're going to bring in money is with your product and your delivery of it. Um, but it's also costing you. You have to put a lot of time and effort and resources into creating that and delivering that in order to um, have a product that that people can buy. So and make
Absolutely.
money.
And, it's like when I work with people who are small businesses, solopreneurs, and I'm like, "What is your marketing budget?" And they're like, "I don't have a marketing budget." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Okay, how many hours a week are you spending on social media? How much do you charge per hour for your services?" You have a marketing budget. You just don't acknowledge it because
Mhm.
you're not thinking about all that time that you're on social media. You're not thinking about the different ways that you are delivering content or information that leads to a sale. And so when we think about all of the delivery process, that's your sales process, that's your marketing, uh, all of the things, all of the tools then, especially like a service-based business, what are the tools for like meeting with clients? Is everything online? Do you have
Mhm.
an office? How are you delivering goods? This is easier in some ways if we're talking about like I make a widget and I ship the widget out. It gets a little softer in like how do you define things like product creation and delivery if you are in consulting or a work from home business.
Mhm.
Things tend to bleed, I find, into each other.
Yeah.
Do you think that's
Well,
what
sure,
I've
because
seen anyway?
you're not paying rent on an office, but you are paying for internet. Now, the internet you also use because it's in your home for streaming movies. So it's, how much of the internet is for work and how much is for enjoyment. And, you kind of it does. It kind of all melds together when you work out of the home. Your utilities, it's part of your utility bills.
Right.
All of it goes together when you work out of your home. So it's kind of hard to pull out those costs.
So and I think that in when we look at how productivity is calculated and we look at these kinds of definitions, we can kind of start to see how productivity kind of peels off of the time management. It's bigger than time management. Now, the parts that we're gonna talk about because, well, I don't know about Shelley. I'm not really a finance expert, and I'm not
No,
gonna
me
talk
neither.
about all of the money and all of that part, so we're acknowledging in our definition that there is that part, and talking more about, like, how to manage tasks, how to manage a project. I have a lot of project management experience. We're gonna talk about that side of the house because these are things that we can talk about with expertise that are within our lane. But I think it's important to also acknowledge that there's this whole other side of how productivity is calculated. So it's
Mhm.
not just man hours, it's all of the rest of it as well. But one of the things that we can control in small businesses and as solopreneurs is kind of I like to think of it as self-leadership. How are we leading ourselves through the day and being more effective in our time?
Right, right. I think you definitely have to keep your priorities and your values as number one. You have to know what they are, even to have them written down. And you have to know those top three questions for your business, which is who's your target audience, what's their biggest problem, and how do you solve that problem? And you have to ask that about everything. Toby was starting another book with it's going to be like a coffee table picture book with small set photography, and we've been kind of playing it out, talking about it, designing it. And he's also got a channel where we're doing these live streams about small set photography. And I asked him, who is this for? And he's like, well, and I'm like, because you get so very technical that it's way beyond me. So, and I'm very
Yeah.
amateurish. I would take pictures with my phone. So who is this for? So I had to dive into, helping him get through who is his target audience. And I like, this is the number one thing you have to know. And sometimes you have to continue to ask yourself questions about it. If you come out with a new product, like Jen has her Epiphany courses, she had to go through this again for herself and say, who is this for? What is their problem? How do I solve it? And you have to answer those questions every time you're working on anything.
Absolutely, and it gets easier. The more you look at them and think about it, it gets easier. And you mentioned something else that I wanna really highlight, which is you also need to have other people helping you, and you
Mhm.
have to talk to somebody because, yeah, it's easy to go and in so deep into your expertise and things are so cool and but you might lose people. So, it's important to have those questions in mind, and then if you have a colleague or a friend or a coach, whoever who can be like, what are you talking about? This looks really cool. Is this for me?"
Mhm. That's right. That's right.
It's really
And
important.
every time people say, "Oh, you gotta be on TikTok, gotta be on I cannot tell you how many times a day I keep hearing about, "Gotta be on TikTok," and I'm like, "My target audience isn't on TikTok. Stop talking to me about it."
Yeah, it's really funny. Oh, I forgot to tell you that so last I think it was last week we were talking about how about TikTok and NFTs, and,
Mm.
like, somebody trolled us on Twitter about NFTs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. So, somebody was watching on Twitter and said, "I made an NFT for you," and posted it. It was kinda funny.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So okay, so let's get back to this. So if we've
Mhm,
gone through our 3 questions, so we have an idea of who we're serving and how we do it,
mhm,
and maybe we have some projects in mind, business initiatives. I call them projects because of my background, but really business initiatives, things we wanna deliver. Um, how do we break down tasks effectively so we can be more productive?
mm. Yeah, I think you have to find that well, and what we have here is goals clarity, like you said. You have to know what your goal is and then all the steps to get to that goal. And then you have to take those steps and plot them out into your calendar so that you know that you're working on those important things and you're not getting so sidetracked that you lose sight of that goal.
Absolutely, and I think that what some people do is they jump all the way into the how too early
Mm,
instead of thinking about the what and the why.
mhm. Why
They're all
why comes first, right? You
yeah,
have to
all
know
these
why you're
things.
doing it.
Yeah, why are we doing this? Is this core to our mission? Is this core
Mhm,
to the people? Is this so important to the people that we serve? And do they know it's important to them? The like this course that I just launched, find the right marketing tools for your small business. I'm like, do people know how important that is? I don't know. It's an experiment. Every time we deliver something new, it's an experiment. Do we know? And it was a risk, but I was willing to take it because I know how important it is.
mhm.
On behalf of my customers, I know how
I feel
important
they
it is.
always have questions about that because it's always changing and it's always it's, uh it's an investment, you're investing money, you're investing time in learning a product, and you're investing, your business into it. Say you're coming up with a new CRM and you're trying it out, and you put all your information in there, you spend all that time and effort doing that, now you're in there. And then something else better comes along. "Oh, no, what do I do?" So you wanna
Yeah.
make sure you're making the right choice to start with, so I think that's really important.
It is, but people it's not sexy. It's not sexy. It's not like, "Launch your business on TikTok." Like, that's like everybody wants to jump on that ship, and it's a lot different. So, all of which is to say, having clear goals and sticking to them and understanding who you're serving and what's important for them, and sometimes it does mean even if they don't know it's important to them. In the case of finding the right marketing tools, I think it's important. I think people who are cost aware know how important and time aware know how important it is, but it's not that sexy thing, but it's still in service to others. So one of the problems that I see a lot is people go too big, and then it becomes really hard to break down tasks effectively, meaning
Mhm.
it's really hard to break those into small. I like to break things down into smaller pieces. Is that and that's how I get through things. And you're the one who wrote this bullet point, how to break down tasks effectively. How do you go through and break them down?
Well, I basically, if I have a thing that I need to do, like I need to get a show out every week, I will break that down into 3 parts: pre-production, production, post-production. And then within those 3 parts, I'll do the tasks. What's involved in pre-production? Well, I have to do this, 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 this. And I have to do that every single time. So I'll make a checklist for myself so that every week on a certain day of the week, usually Monday, check, 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 check. I did those things. And then I know without having to, try to remember, I have it all in front of me. And then I get my show done, and then I do my post production, and then I know that whole project is complete. So
Yeah.
I think any project can be broken down in that way. So first you break it down into the larger sections, and then you take each section and break that further down into tasks.
Absolutely. And if you need help with doing that, there's a book called The Checklist Manifesto, which is interesting because there's no checklists in it. That was one of the, like, I ordered that book and then I opened it and I'm like, there are no checklists in here. Not even some bullet points. But it does go into why that is so effective and why it's a really good thing to do. It's like a New York Times a seller, I think. We will definitely put it in the show notes as a resource for you because it's one of there were a whole bunch of books I read at the beginning of the year, and this is one of them that it just helps you break down tasks into smaller pieces. It will help you manage some things if this is like not making sense. Like some people think if it's just big, then I can just do it. But you have to really think about for me, there's no such thing as an overnight success. There's like a million steps in the right direction.
Yes.
And the beauty of having checklists, the beauty of the process that Shelley is outlining is it's making sure that you're on that path and you're following that path every day and making those little steps.
Hmm.
So if you need help with that, that's a resource for you. And And hand in hand with that, we talked about it last week and things like the click-minded SOPs where you can go through and get checklists for different marketing tasks. There are about 150 million tasks for podcasters. The checklists if you want a checklist that somebody else has made, just do a search. And I'm sure you can find a checklist.
Probably even go on Canva and type it in, and some pretty one will come up. And
Canva, another great place for lists is Etsy.
Mm,
I have
interesting.
found all kinds of guides and lists on Etsy. It's very
Mhm.
interesting. So make sure you break it down into small tasks. And then the next thing that really goes into this, and this is something that is really important to me because I tend to underestimate how long things take. And
Mm,
if you are in that space, then it's really important to conduct a time audit. The other time when a time audit is important is if you just feel like you're wasting time, but you don't know what it is that you are doing. So if you would like some time awareness around how you're spending your day, then you can conduct a time audit. So here are a few steps in conducting a time audit. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you're picking a typical week. Don't pick a week where you are covering for somebody else or you're traveling or anything special or different is happening because that will disrupt anything that you're trying to accomplish. And then there are a couple of different ways. So what a time audit really is at the large level is tracking, it's just tracking your time a little bit so that you can then go back and look at it and go, "Oh, like I've spent 20 hours on social media this week and I got nothing out of it," for
Mm.
example. Or maybe you're not aware, like I think I've talked about it before. When we first started making courses, I had these insane goals about how many courses I could make in a week.
Mhm.
It was multiple in a week. Not the case. That's not true. And so if you underestimate how much time something takes, then you can become frustrated because you don't feel like your productivity is on point. But it could actually be that you're trying to have a baby in a month, and that's just not possible. So one of the ways to get through that is to conduct a time audit. And so you choose a typical week, and then there are a couple different ways to kind of track your time. And it really just depends on where you're at and what you're most comfortable with. When people are like, "Ew, time audit," meh," like I'm like, just get
That's
just
like
get
writing down calories.
I
Ew.
know, right? It's like it is, yeah. So the first way to do it is to just have a little notebook next to your keyboard, and then as you switch tasks, you just write down like did doing this and what time. The
Mhm.
other way of doing it, if you're like, "That sounds awful," the other way of doing it is to use a time tracking app. The one that I recommend for this is called Top Tracker. It's offered by a company called TopTal. I think that they do a lot of like kind of an Upwork or a freelance company. And this is free. And I have actually used it early on in my freelancing. I used it when I was doing a lot of websites because what it does, it not only tracks your time and you can switch from project to project, it takes screenshots. So
Mm.
it's giving you a little bit of accountability, so I could send these to people and be like, "This is what I was working on," and if they wanted, they could see the screenshots as I went. I don't think anybody gets that granular. This is also a time tracking app, so it's really robust if you're doing consulting or anything by the hour, and it's free, which is great, and I
Mm.
don't know why more people don't talk about it. I think it's just not as well known as some of the other time tracking apps. So that time tracking app, you could basically turn it on, and as you switch projects, you can just change the title of what it is that you're tracking, and then it's taking screenshots. So if you were doing a time audit and you're like, "Did I really spend, 3 hours working on XYZ?" And then you go back and look at the screenshots and you're like on Facebook or Twitter, you kinda have your answer. So that's another way of doing it. It's a little more hands off. The other thing that makes a time audit more effective goes back to actually the first point, which is if you're planning your time and what it is that you're going to be working on, a time audit is a lot like writing down your calories. It's kind of like that
Mm.
Weight Watchers app or whatever it is that you're using, because you're going to plan out what it is you're going to work on and you're going to track your time, and then you're going to see what actually happens. And that's what makes a time audit so effective. It's, are you even if you're just looking at the calorie app yourself, you stop and think before you eat pie.
Yeah.
I don't know who you
I don't
are.
wanna write that down.
I don't wanna write down pie. And then you have to think about, how badly do I really want the pie?
Mhm.
So, it's the same thing with a time audit. It
Mm.
holds you personally accountable. If you have a larger company or employees, you can also there are ways of implementing this for larger groups. For this audience, we really are talking about, self-leadership, self-management. And I think that what we find in going through a time audit, and I've done several myself, is there is always a place where you have more where there's space for doing things more efficiently.
Mhm.
Because I was reading this morning that they think that really only 30% of our day is effective. Like
Mm.
we're only being productive like 30% of the time that we define as working. And that's one of the things that's so fascinating is that we think that we have to work longer in order to be more productive, but we may actually be making it harder for ourselves to be productive because we're wearing ourselves out. And then maybe that 30% becomes 10%.
Yeah. You want to be, you want to make sure that you're doing your work at a time of day when you're best, at your best. For me, that is usually in the early morning. First thing I get up because I've got, as I'm waking up in the morning, I'm thinking, oh, I want to get this done. I want to get this done. I want to get this done. And, I grab my water and my coffee and I go sit down at the computer and I get to work and really can focus in until I get hungry enough that I have to, then go eat breakfast and that sort of thing. But I know I have a couple of really strong hours in there where I can get a lot done. And when I get distracted by emails instead of doing the work I had thought I was going to do, then the whole project just stretches out and takes the entire day. So you have to really be cognizant of what's stealing your time away from your productivity. Is it, playing with emails? Is it going on Facebook? And then just make sure that you set a time aside for that and say, okay, no, I'm not going to do emails until after breakfast. And then, you can focus on those blocks of time where you are most productive and getting your most important things done during that time.
Absolutely. So that is really about prioritizing, it sounds to me. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
Uh-huh. Yeah. And it's all planning. It's knowing yourself and planning for it. Yeah.
So how do you prioritize key tasks? What advice do you have to give to people?
I think the things that I prioritize at the top are the things that I've promised other people. Maybe that's not ideal, but it is how I work and it is how I was brought up that if you've made a promise to somebody, you get that done first, right? Especially if somebody's paying you for that work. That's the first thing you do.
Mhm.
And you work on it until it's done and you make sure it's in on time, if not early. And that's how I work. And then anything after that is things that I'm, long-term goals, things that I'm working on for those long-term goals that I can put aside if I have to focus on those priority tasks. What do you do?
I do that too. I don't like email, so I have to force myself to work on email. I know a lot of people will go in there and get lost, and I do too, and I don't particularly enjoy it. I will say that one of the things that is helpful when I do it, and this is when I keep a notebook next to my keyboard, is when I start to rabbit trail off into things that are interesting to me, then I make a note of it and get back on task. That's one of the things to do to like kind of is this a priority? Yes or no? And then
Mhm,
I make a note of it as like something to look at later. Look at this later, Jen. And I think that anything that we can do, I think last week we talked a little bit about the Pomodoro method. I think anything that you can do where you are prioritizing the most important things and in some way kind of honoring like, "Oh, I just had this great thought." Like, but if it's gonna take you
mhm,
a really long time to process all of that, and it could mean that you don't deliver something for somebody else, or it means that anything else that you had to accomplish isn't gonna get done, then it's really important to write it down and, get back to it later. I use a notebook, and then I use an app called Pocket
mhm.
because I'm an avid reader, and I just hit the Pocket button because it saves the article for later, and I can get back and read it when I want.
Oh,
Whatever it is that will help you make those kinds of choices, you will be saving yourself a lot and you'll find your productivity will go up. You'll find that it's quicker to deliver on promises if you hold yourself accountable and your time accountable.
yeah.
Like time will continue to move. You can't actually control or manage time. You can control and manage how you interact with the hours that you have in each day.
Nicely put, yes. I was thinking about, something that is kind of cute and funny that my daughter and her husband um, kind of instituted this thing where she was only allowed to complain on Thursdays from like 1 to 3, and that was it. And the rest of the week, he would just tell her, "Save it for Thursday, save it for," because she was complaining a lot, right? And
Yeah.
this is how they came to an agreement that she would save it for, and then as she did that, she learned to stop complaining. And this is, we can do the same thing with any one of our tasks that we either don't like, or we find ourselves jumping into, every time we have a spare moment, maybe I'll just go do Facebook. Oh, I've got a spare minute. Let me go do Facebook. Well, instead, if you block out the times that you're going to do that favorite thing, then your subconscious knows, and your brain knows, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to work on Facebook until 4 o'clock this afternoon. It's on my calendar. I've set aside time for it, and when you do that, then you can organize your thoughts a lot better. You can organize your time of productivity, and you're not going to take every spare moment and jump into something else. You might just sit there for a minute and breathe and think, what do I really need to be working on right now? And no, not Facebook. What is it? And then give yourself that minute to really think about your goals, and where you want to go, and how you're going to get there. And then something's going to come to you, to fill in that space and say, "Oh, here is something I really need to work on. I really want to work on, or I forgot that I wanted to do this." So give yourself that breathing space by scheduling those automatic, habits of going onto Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is for you.
Oh, 100%. And when I teach marketing around the state, and I tell people you only need to check social media like twice a day, half of the room is totally relieved. And the other half is like, uh, like they just don't, a- a- and it's because it's like an extension. But one of the things about productivity and about our brains is that minute that you're going to spend getting your dopamine hit from social media, it can really stretch out into a
Mhm.
long time. And it's that switching back and forth between tasks that can really destroy productivity because of how our brains work. We can't just switch the way that we think that we can. And those 15 minutes turn into hours sometimes if we don't make them time bound. When I talk to people about social media, I say, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, and that's all you need. You schedule your posts, and then you can practice being engaging and engaging with the posts during the day. Now, that means you have to prioritize things like content parties so that you can put together the posts that you can put in the scheduler. That's a lot different than prioritizing a social media app over whatever it is that's actually more important and going to bring you money. Because remember, when we talk about productivity and how it's calculated for a business, it's really about how do you get to money quicker? How do you get to service delivery faster? And the fastest way to do that, I think, is through prioritizing those tasks, which
Yes.
sounds so easy, but you have to have ways that that you are able to say, I'm not going to do that right now, and put it aside and honor that, whether it's by writing it down or putting your phone in the other room. I've done that before. So that I'm not picking it up
Right.
during the
Out of
day.
sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Take that chocolate cake and hide it in the garage or something.
So that's really about, and getting into the next piece, it's really about like reallocating resources, using the things that are the most important, working on the most important tasks so that you are putting as many resources as possible into getting products and services out to people, because that will give you the highest return in your business, which is really what we want anyway.
Mhm. Yeah.
So by raising awareness through things like a time audit and the most effective tasks, then we can really target the areas for improvement and move through improving and being more productive quicker.
Yes. And it requires a little discipline.
All the disciplines, so much discipline.
Yeah.
So we
But
haven't really gotten have we gotten any questions? We haven't today, have
mm-mm,
we?
not today, no.
Everybody's thinking deep thoughts.
Yes. Everybody's like, "I
So
got it. That all makes sense to me. I can
that's
do
right.
it."
So what is one way I think we're moving out of the training. So I
Mhm.
think that everybody has probably a pretty good sense of how productivity is calculated, how they can move through tasks quicker. What do you think that what's your call to action? What are the things that could really help people?
Well, coming from my area of expertise is content creation and having a system in place for that. Now, of course, I would recommend a system for anything that you do, especially repetitively in your business. For me, that's content creation, and I have a system for that. And if you're interested in learning that system, we have a playlist on YouTube on the Messages and Methods YouTube channel, and you can go check that out. It's called Livecast Life, and it trains you in our method for creating content every week and getting out a live stream video, a podcast, and a blog every week, and then sharing that out on social media as well. So that's my recommendation for what you can do if you're needing to do content creation. What about you?
Well, and we've been talking about productivity. I feel like we've given a lot of resources for how to do that throughout today. I would say if you think that marketing apps and tools will help you get your work done more quickly, I would highly suggest taking the course Find the Right Marketing Tools for Your Small Business just because it will save you so much time and money and the pricing is really affordable so that people can even if it costs 20 bucks a month for whatever app you're looking at, if you realize it's a bad idea, the course is more than paid for itself.
That's right.
So, I think that that would be a good thing to do, and then definitely check out the time tracker, top tracker, checklist manifesto, some of these different tools that you can also be using just to squeeze out a few more tasks out of every day.
Hmm.
So,
I'm going to put that link in the
what's your
chat.
tweak? What's your tweak of the week? Oh,
Tweak of the week. Let me see. My tweak of the week. Well, I figured out how to put my a short 30-second video onto my LinkedIn profile. But they've been having some issues with it showing up or not showing up for people. So that was a tweak that I'm still working on because LinkedIn is having issues with it. So
maybe
I'm
it was
gonna
that Windows update.
yeah, who knows? It could be.
It's owned by
There are a lot
Microsoft.
of
That was
weird
a really nerdy joke. I apologize. That was like
yeah, no.
next level nerdy.
Yeah. But if you have any questions on how to add a 30-second video to your LinkedIn profile, I can walk you through that. But at this point in time, it's a little iffy on if it's going to work on LinkedIn or not. The other
Mhm.
tweak of the week is the previews on the YouTube live events. So when we schedule a live event, a live video, like we scheduled this one live, the Women Conquer Business is live every Thursday morning. And when I scheduled the event, it shows up on the YouTube channel and you can click on it and you can set a reminder. But YouTube has also given us the ability to add a trailer so that if you were to go there and say, oh, Women Conquer Business Thursday, let me go look at and set myself a reminder. And then you look at it and a trailer will play and it can talk and you can put whatever you want in that trailer. Like if you just want to say, maybe the
Yeah.
opening for your podcast, like, this is about such and so and so, and Jen and Shelley are going to be talking about blah, 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 and we'll see you on Thursday, and then you can add that to your YouTube video for when your event is scheduled. So,
That sounds like so much fun. I'm gonna have fun with that. I will do a preview for next week's show.
cool. We'll do that.
Test it out.
Yeah.
I think that would be
Tweak of the
fun.
week.
Those are great.
Yeah. And it's not hard. It's not hard. I mean, you could create a video in Canva, or, if you have one of those simple editing programs, you can throw something together. It could be, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be 10 seconds, could be 30 seconds, whatever it is you want to put up there.
Might just be me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can just upload a video of me
We can do
talking.
that.
So that's awesome. That's
Did you have
awesome.
any tweaks?
I have been developing a website, so no.
Mm-hmm.
I've been hyper focused on that. I have no tweaks.
Yeah.
Nothing.
But you were on a podcast.
I was on the Launch with Words podcast with my friend Bridget Willard. We talked all about how important it is to create content for your business and a lot of different tips and tricks. It was super fun. She is a great person, and we'll definitely put the link in the chat for that.
What's that podcast called?
Launch with Words. She created Launch with Words, and she created a WordPress app. You're gonna love this. Shelly, this is great. This is up your alley. She created a WordPress app called Launch with Words that gives business owners monthly prompts so that they can get their blog going. And it's so great. And then she has like power packs so that chambers of commerce, construction, all different types of people, business owners have like very specific prompts for different types of businesses. And it's just such a wonderful tool. It kind of defeats the I don't have anything to write about that people tend to say to web developers, people who are consultants like me. We hear it all the time. And so we talk on that show about how important content is and why you need to have it and what are some of the things that you could be talking about. It was super fun. And I think I made a new friend. We had followed each other on Twitter for a couple years, and it was the first time I'd talked to her really as a person, like on Zoom. She's in San Antonio, and it was wonderful. We talked for much longer than the show. The show's like 22 minutes, and we talked for I think like 2 hours. So, but we had a really good time, and she's a really neat woman. So I would say definitely subscribe to that show. It's 20 minutes once a week, and you will learn so much about content. And that's Launch with Words with Bridget Willard, and she brings a lot of cool people on.
All right. Did I spell it right?
Yep, that's it.
All right. Launch with Words. Easy. Okay. I think it's time for our inspiration. So I wanted to share this with you guys. Jim Rohn's widely quoted line is, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And Goethe said, "Tell me with whom you consort, and I will tell you who you are." And he said, "If I know how you spend your time, then I know what might become of you." So that's a good thing to keep in mind as we're thinking about productivity and what we're spending our time on and what will become of us because of the use of that time. And who are we spending time with? And is that uplifting for us? And is it making us a better, stronger person? So it's a good thing to ask ourselves every now and then, am I happy with the people in my life? Are they making me a better person? Am I setting a good example for the people in my life? Do they look to me as an example of how to be? And, is that what I want? Do I want them to look at me and go, well, I want to do that. I want to be like you. Or do you want to go, no, you don't want to be like me. Don't do this. So it's a good thing to ask ourselves every now and then when we're getting to productivity. Am I spending my time on things that matter? And what's it going to turn me into when I spend my days doing these things?
Yeah. Well, I am grateful to spend time with you, Shelly, and I want to thank all of you who have listened. We've talked for a full hour. I think it's a new record. I want to thank you for spending your time with us, and have a great week, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, and thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining the Women Conquer Business podcast, hosted by Shelly Carney and Jen McFarland. Please subscribe and leave a comment or question regarding your most challenging content creation or business problem. Then share this podcast with family and friends so they can find the support they need to expand their brand and share their message with the world. Check the show notes for links to valuable resources and come back again next week.